I kind of just found every opportunity I could and made the time for it, and just tried to leave a lasting impression on everyone that I worked with. So if anything does come up, that your name is someone that they remember.
Welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast, a free resource for women who work in the sports and entertainment industry. Each week we get real and talk about the things that hold us back and how we can overcome them and keep climbing to the top. And the top is however you define it. We talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Consider this podcast your secret weapon. You will learn from the best in the business and be able to take immediate action with all the advice that you hear. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake, a leadership development coach and consultant. I've worked in sports for 20 years. 15 of those years were spent working for the Red Sox, Dodgers, and the Cubs. After 15 years of working in the front office, I took a leap of faith and I started my own business. Friends, as a Black woman in sports, I know that the industry can take a toll on your confidence and sometimes leave you feeling defeated. Join me each week so I can support you on your journey. I promise you, each week you will feel stronger and more confident than the week before. So let's get started with this week's episode. What would you do if you found out your male coworker, who is also your counterpart, was making $50,000 more than you? Well, Callie Welch, Director of Alumni Relations and Marketing for the Las Vegas Raiders, is going to tell you exactly what she did. Listen in as Callie talks about the salary disparity and how she handled it, along with some other great gems. We talked about how you can avoid feeling alone and helpless when you're working in a toxic work environment. She talks about the power of saying no to protect your energy and your goals. She talks about the value of a manager creating psychological safety. And there is so much more in this episode. It is jam-packed with incredible insights and will leave you feeling empowered and also rooting for Callie and her career journey. All right, Game of Her Own listeners, let's do this. Callie, welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast. I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Okay, before we get started in talking about your career, tell us when you first fell in love with sports.
I fell in love with sports twice. I fell in love with baseball first, and that's all thanks to one of my dearest friends. So my parents both worked full time. So after school, I would go to my best friend's house and we would just play baseball in the backyard, have home run derbies. We would go inside. He had all this fancy hitting equipment and, would throw a baseball in the backyard. And as the years went on and, it came time to play organized baseball, it was just a thought of, why would I play softball? I play baseball every day with, my best friend. And it was really his mom and him that pushed me to get into boys baseball. So growing up until high school, I played with the boys, the only girl in the whole league. So baseball was also, always a passion point for me. And then separately fell in love with football because my dad, was religious about watching football on Sundays. He was a big Green Bay Packers fan. And I remember vividly, it was 2003 NFC wildcard game. And I just happened to walk by the TV and he was watching it. And there was a big play. Al Harris had an interception and my dad went crazy. And I was like, this football thing seems kind of fun. And then Sundays, I just started watching with him and asking him questions. And he really taught me the game of football. And that's when I became a huge Packers fan and a fan of the game there.
I love that story. And is your dad super proud that you are now working for the Raiders?
He is. Yes. He's very proud. He's still a Packers fan first, but
okay, fair. Right. Yes. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Did you always want to work in sports?
I did not. My whole family they are in the medical field, big science background. So, I pass out when I see blood. I'm not a hospital person. It was just not a field I wanted to go into. So I kind of thought, what's the next best thing? I loved the beach and animals. So I thought marine biology was what I was going to go into. So my whole life, my fourth grade yearbook says, what are you going to be when you grow up? A marine biologist. I went to University of Tampa undergrad, and my first 2 years there, I was a marine biology major. And I listened to one of your episodes recently of a woman who cried on the way to work every day because she was miserable. And she had kind of a toxic work environment. And not that marine biology was toxic, but I was just miserable. I was pretty used to doing well in school. I wasn't doing well. It just wasn't clicking for me. And one of my closest friends was in the sports management program, and there was a Philadelphia Phillies kind of end of spring training party, and they needed volunteers. So I went just because they asked me, and it was the first time where I was at the event and realized that, oh my God, this is a career. Went and changed my major the next day. That was not a fun conversation with my parents of not going to be a marine biologist, just have 68 unused credits of science, and now I'm going to work in sports. But they were super, super supportive. And it ended up obviously working out for the best.
Wow. So the party that you were volunteering,
yep,
you literally were like, all right, well, I love this. I'm changing my major. Like literally next day, no like fear about it, no anything, or maybe a fear, I don't know. But like you were just like, I'm doing it. I'm not letting anything stop me. Let's go do this.
Yeah, I was ready. I was, my dad always said, do what you love, no matter what. And I just wasn't doing what I loved. And I knew I loved baseball and football and sports, and the way it made me feel to watch sports and play sports. In school, you take math and science and English, and you don't really realize that sports are a career. I took econ and accounting, but was never really shown an opportunity that sports is a career. Sports management or, anything to do with sports is a career.
And you have some really good experience, or you have really good experience. Like you went to the Phillies and the Bucks, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like you got right in there after school.
So I changed my major start of my junior year, is when I started in sports management classes. And it was the second day of the semester, and the whole sports management program got an email that the sports management department was looking for a professor's assistant. And I needed another part-time job. And I applied, and then I decided, you know what, I'm near the office. I'm going to go to the department chair's office and just stop by and introduce myself and ask about the position. So I did that. And, the next day I got brought in for an interview. And they told me in that interview, and, I give this as a piece of advice, they got 100 applications or inquiries about the position, but I was the only one to go into the office and introduce myself and inquire about the position in person. And they thought, going the extra mile, they were impressed by that. So I got to be an assistant to 6 sports management professors on campus, which was an incredible opportunity just to have more face time with professors. I was helping them with research. And so that was a great way to get my foot in the door. And then I started part-time in the spring with Philadelphia Phillies in spring training in the ticket office. Had no interest in tickets whatsoever, no interest in sales. I'm not an extrovert in that manner. I could not do well in sales, but wanted to get my foot in the door in baseball. And that honestly was one of the best decisions I made, because it did show me sports and the industry that it is. And I'm super thankful that I did that. So I started off there, and then got an internship with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in community relations, which was also one of the best things to ever happen to me and kind of got me into the NFL as well.
Tell me about your time doing some contract work for the Super Bowl. And I asked this just because an episode that recently aired about how to get contract work, especially if you already have a full-time job. And I can't tell if you had a full-time job at the time or not, but like, how did you go about getting this contract work?
It's kind of a long story, and I'm sure we'll kind of weave back into it. But I had a full-time job, and members of my team were, logging off at 3, or I'd really need an answer and they wouldn't get back to me. Sorry, I was golfing all day. Sorry, I forgot to tell you I'm on vacation. And I saw them having all this free time to kind of live their life and relax and do what they want and have that flexibility. And I thought, well, I'm going to use this free time to get another job and to get more experience and to kind of go that extra step. So I saw a opening for a part-time executive assistant position for sports executives. And I interviewed and took on that role. And it allowed me to get into an office and do my full-time job, but also help this executive out, a few hours a day and on the weekends and things like that. And he was a big sales executive with the USPA, the Super Bowl, Cirque, a bunch of, big organizations and events. He spearheaded a project with AT&T Super Saturday Night Live that happens on the Saturday before the Super Bowl every year in the host city. AT&T comes in, they build a venue, they have a huge headliner, it's a big production. And I started helping out when the Super Bowl was in Atlanta, doing part-time work just with, VIP hosts. ESPN would buy a table, I'd be their point of contact. Fox Sports would send some executives, I'd be their point of contact. So I did that in Atlanta. And then the executive retired. so wasn't assisting him anymore. But AT&T reached out to me and said, I know you're not working at your former company anymore, but we would love to bring you on again for this year in Miami. And that was incredible. And, they said, you always put the extra effort in. Our clients remembered you. They asked if you were coming back, and I got brought back for Super Bowl in Miami. So I took vacation for my full-time job and went down to Miami for 3 weeks, and rolled up my sleeves and did that gig. So I think finding opportunities wherever you can fit them in. There's the same 24 hours in a day for everyone. I saw my coworkers going golfing and relaxing, which now I think is super important. But at the beginning of my career, I didn't want to relax. I wanted to meet more people, get more experience. I was working in baseball, but I wanted to work in large scale events. So I kind of just found every opportunity I could and made the time for it, and just tried to leave a lasting impression on everyone that I worked with. So if anything does come up, that your name is someone that they remember.
Yes. I love that your colleagues were, doing their version of self-care during working hours. I am not turning my nose up on that. And right, because you may work super hard and then, you know what, like I deserve these 4 hours in the middle of the day to go golfing. Fine. Yeah. But you saw that happening. And so instead of are you a golfer?
I was, not anymore.
Okay. So instead of same. So instead of you golfing, or instead of you doing some sort of leisurely activity that you saw the opportunity to do, you were just like, we're just going home and sitting on the couch, right? Like you were like, oh, I see this opportunity, this time I can use it to continue to broaden my experiences, like really just go out there and learn more from other people and make some money too while I'm doing it.
Yep. Yeah. And I don't want to put down the money. I mean, making extra money, especially what I was making salary wise at that time. I was living in Manhattan. I was in grad school at night. I needed extra money. So that definitely didn't hurt. But it was also just the experience and the people I met, and, getting to go to Miami for 3 weeks and work the Super Bowl was an awesome opportunity.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I will link, those of you listening, I will link in the show notes about the episode on how to go out and get contract work. So thank you for sharing that, because the timing is perfect. You got your master's at NYU, is that right?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your decision to go get your master's in sports, business, and law. Did I get that right?
You did, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I had a full-time job in baseball. And I just came to a point where I felt like I wasn't learning. I wasn't being challenged. It became easy for me. And I was also starting to work in contracts and realized, oh my God, I love contracts. I love negotiating. I was kind of thinking I might want to go into salary arbitration. And I just started looking at master's programs. I love school. I love being in school, studying, note cards. I love all of it. I kind of wanted to get back into that. So I looked at a few master's programs and felt that my foundation at University of Tampa, I didn't need another master's in sports management. I felt like I was prepared and, had a super strong foundation in that topic. But law was something that was really of interest to me. And I felt like it was kind of synonymous with a lot of things that people do in sports and touches a lot of aspects of business. So I only applied to NYU and Columbia, and NYU's program just matched up with what I was looking to do, with classes in negotiation, sports contracts, intellectual property, and learned a ton there, but also wanted to do the networking aspect. Was in New York and just wanted to, meet new people, have classmates that had the same interests as me. And so was there from 2016 to 2018 doing classes at night.
People often wonder, should I go get my master's? Is it going to give me the competitive edge? What's your advice to them?
I think it can go either way. For my personal growth, I think it helped a ton in terms of public speaking, networking, just my general knowledge of the field, self-confidence, meeting new peers. But in terms of getting a leg up professionally, I was humbled very quickly when I graduated and went to my employer and said, all right, I have a master's degree and I want to take more on. And, I put all this work in. Here's the promotion I'd like. Here's what I think I can do. And they very quickly were like, okay, you have a master's degree. That doesn't really change. Like, we don't have more work to give you. There's nothing we can really do. So that was a humbling moment of, I did it for myself, but also to grow and to gain more responsibility and to climb the ladder, and to see that not translate was very hard to deal with at first. But looking back, I think it was more the environment that I was in as opposed to, a master's degree not mattering. So for anyone that's on the fence, personally, it was one of the best things I ever did. I know it's financial commitment, which, is frustrating to need to put that much money and put yourself back financially to grow professionally. But in terms of the mentors I got, the material that I learned and the experiences that it gave me, I think it was absolutely worth it.
But talk about that humbling moment. And you said it was difficult at first. Say more about that.
It was very difficult. It was kind of full circle. That was one of the reasons I went to grad school, was because I wanted to further myself. I wasn't being challenged and I wanted to grow. And here I am asking for more work and more responsibilities and an opportunity to prove myself. And it's kind of an underlying theme with my experience at that company, but it wasn't valued. And they kind of were like, yeah, congrats. And we're going to continue going as we planned. But at the same time, I was still an executive assistant for that executive. And the day after I graduated, he said, I'm working on this project. Why don't I bring you into this meeting? And have you ever thought about doing this? And he was on his way to retire, but he saw the value in the education that I just got. And he, after only, I assisted him a few hours a week, and he wanted to see me further myself and thought of all the extra meetings he could put me in, projects I could listen in on. So that's when I realized the feedback I got from my full-time job was not normal. And that was kind of where the red flag started of, okay, this is not the environment I want to be in. I want education to be valued, and I want my leader to want to see me succeed and kind of grow and get promoted and learn more. So that was actually, as much as it was humbling and difficult to go through, it was definitely an eye-opening experience for me.
I'm trying to find the right words for this, but the mentor that you had, where you were an executive assistant, he, like you said, I got my master's, what can I do? And it was, what can she do? Like, it was more thought, like, what can I let her in on? What can I, how can I help her grow? And he might not have had all the answers or a plan on paper. Okay, you got your master's, now you're going to, you know what I mean? Like, this is your new growth plan. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he was just like, here are some opportunities, like, come in this meeting, do this. And like, here are some things you should do, and tried to help you continue your growth. Where the other place, it was almost like you said, it wasn't valued. Yep. It was almost like you kind of just were like, oh, I did all this work. I have value to bring to the organization. And while you weren't expecting to be like, okay, here you go, you should be an executive vice president because you got your master's, but you are looking for some help to grow. Is that right?
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yep.
Some of the toughest conversations we have are the ones that we have with ourselves. We can convince ourselves to believe stories that we don't even know are true. What's crazy is we allow that story to take a toll on our confidence. Have you been there before? I know that I have. We get in our heads. We beat ourselves up. Here's some tough love. Nobody's got time for that. We are high achieving women who have big career goals. We don't have time to get in our own way. And I am here to support you with my new one-on-one coaching program, Step Into Your Power and Own Your Career. My clients have told me that when we work together, I've helped them get out of their own way, regain their confidence, learn how to manage their emotion and mindset. They've told me that they've been able to get their voice back and use it with confidence. The most important thing, they've told me that we've identified the obstacle that was getting in their way. If you want to learn more about this program, scroll down in the show notes, click on the link that says Step Into Your Power and Own Your Career. You can set up time to chat with me and we can figure out if this is the right program for what you need. All right, let's get back to the episode. So I know that you value the power of saying yes early in your career, and then the power of saying no later in your career. How did that philosophy impact where you were just that, like at that moment?
I think, another piece of professional advice I would give is do everything you can at the beginning of your career. I was volunteering at, women's NCAA basketball events, lacrosse events, just getting experience wherever I could so that I, one, could see what I'm interested in. I loved football and baseball, but what if I am super interested in tennis or professional golf? And I felt that I needed to go out there and try everything to see what I like, but also to make me more well-rounded candidate and individual. So I felt that I had said yes to everything and grown, and then I was being told no. And I kind of felt like I didn't know, I'd done everything I could, and I didn't know where else to go. So that was super hard to hear. But on the same, I was being told no. I do think there's power in no later on in your career. Like you just said, at the beginning, I will take on any project. As an unpaid intern, I will stay until midnight working on this project. I will come in on weekends. And I'm so happy I did that because I proved myself, and I was proud of the work I put in, and I made connections, and people notice, when you're the first one in and the last one to leave. And I still believe in that philosophy. I still try and be the first one in and the last one to leave. But there's power in no of, I really can't take that project on right now. I can't spread myself too thin. I'm really focused on this project right now, or I would love to help in this area, but I just can't. And I think there's so much power that I'm trying to learn and be okay with of saying no. So being told no was kind of an eye-opening experience of, no, I am worth something, and just kind of making me into the person I am today. I think that was the pivotal moment in my career for sure.
You were being told no, but then you also realized it was time for you to set up some boundaries too. So you were being told no, and you were like, I think this is going to work both ways. Like, I think I'm going to say no to you as well. And it wasn't spiteful. It was, I have to protect me. I have to protect my career. I have a plan. And while it's not going to go perfectly, we all know that, but like, you can roll with the punches, but you were like, no, you guys are telling me no. I'm giving you everything, and you're not valuing it like others have, like other organizations. So now is my time. It was almost like you transitioned into your like no period, if you will, like the putting up boundaries. Is that right?
Yes. It was like, I wish I could give advice on, I literally just woke up the next day and was like a new person. Like I was like, no, I'm not being treated like this. And I had been through situations where I was the only woman in the room. I was the only woman on my team. And, there were jokes, or, there were unsafe situations I was put in that they didn't think about because they're a man and they don't have to. And it was just a really empowering feeling to wake up and be like, no, I put the work in. I'm asking to do more. They're telling me no. So I'm going to go prove to them how much I'm worth. And I ended up doing that. And after they told me no, I was on the shared drive, and it was tax season, and some coworkers, unbeknownst to them, accidentally saved their W-2s on a shared drive.
Oh my God, you guys can't see me, but I just the face palm emoji. Go on. Oh my goodness.
And their mistake ended up honestly shaping my career. I was a little nosy and was like, well, if they're going to put it on, I'm going to open it. And I was praying that I wouldn't see what I thought I was going to see. It was a colleague who had similar experience, didn't have a master's. We both lived in New York, and said colleague was making $50,000 more than I was because they were a man. I opened up the next one. It was a man's W-2, same thing, but much more money than I was making. And something came over me. I downloaded both W-2s.
Oh.
I put them on an email to my boss and their boss's boss. And I wrote an email, and I walked away for a few hours, and I went on a walk, and I called my mom. And I never want to send an email. And I urge, like, you never send an email when you are emotionally charged or angry or upset, because there's some mustard on it that you probably want to take off. So I went back, reworded it.
Okay. So you didn't send it.
No.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
And I'm glad there was some mustard on there. So I'm glad I didn't send it. I reworded it and said, want to make you aware these are on the shared drive. I listed my qualifications, and I said, from my understanding, these are both of their qualifications. If you're unable to match this by the end of the week, or explain to me why you can't match it, consider this my formal 2-week resignation.
Wow.
I was petrified. I had no backup plan. There was a 50% chance they could say sorry, and then I'd have to fall back on my word, which I was not going to do. The anxiety I felt sending that email, but also the relief and like the excitement of, oh my God, you just stood up for yourself. And it felt really, really, really good. And they called me immediately, and, we had some difficult conversations. And I'm someone that when I am upset, I have a hard time voicing it, and I cry, and I hate that about myself.
Why do you hate that about yourself?
It comes across as sadness as opposed to anger and frustration. And sometimes, especially in that work environment, it would be hard for a man to take the men that I was working with to take me seriously if I was crying. It'd be more like, I'm crying because I'm not getting paid enough. Whereas, no, I'm frustrated that I've worked this hard and you're devaluing me because I'm a woman. So there were some difficult conversations, and they said, we didn't budget for a salary increase, and they gave me all of that. And, we can raise it by this small amount until January when we have our new fiscal year. And I took it because, again, I had no backup plan. And it was a raise, but I knew then I had to leave and find something else. So that was kind of my wake up moment where I was like, okay, I need to start applying, and I can't work here angry every day. At the basis, I loved what I did. I just, you can't love what you do when you're being devalued and kind of lied to in a sense. So that was also a super pivotal moment in my career, and one I'm actually super proud of. One that I didn't send the email immediately, and I learned that valuable lesson of walking away, taking a minute and revisiting it. And then also just standing up for myself as a woman and showing, the value that we have as well.
Were you worried about any retaliation?
I was and I wasn't. I was worried that they would say, sorry, we can't match this. Don't know what to tell you. And then I wasn't going to fall back on my word. I knew that. I was not going to take the same salary that I was making. I didn't know what I was going to do otherwise, but I knew that about myself. But yeah, I felt that it was so black and white. There was really no way for them to retaliate because I outlined my qualifications and their qualifications. And there was such a disparity that, if they came back with an excellent reason, this person was doing 10 more jobs than I was doing, or working on this 8 more projects that I didn't know of, fine. As long as they explained it and made me understand. So I wasn't really afraid of the retaliation. I was more afraid of them just saying, sorry, we can't match this. We don't value you at that price point, was what I was definitely afraid of.
Ooh. God, there's so many emotions in that.
There is
just so many. And you try not to get emotional. I'm like you. If I'm tired and emotionally charged, it's
game over.
I got, yeah. It's just you're like, wait, what just happens? Where did I go? You just completely lose yourself. So I get it. I'm a crier. I'm emotional. It is what it is. I don't know what to tell you. I used to hate it about myself. Now I'm I will actually tell people I might cry, just deal with it.
Yeah.
We're going to keep talking now. But that's so many emotions. And so then you had the decision to make, do I stay or do I go?
Yes. And as we all know, it's not really, do I go? I mean, transitioning in sports and getting a job in sports is very difficult. And like I said, at the basis, I was loving what I was doing. I loved working in baseball. So I knew I couldn't just get a job tomorrow because the sports industry is so niche and there's only so many teams and areas that I would move to. And it was kind of difficult to imagine myself anywhere else. I'd also been there for 6 years and straight out of college and kind of grown there. And it was super scary to think about leaving. And then I saw a job posting with the Raiders and thought, Las Vegas was never on my place to move to. And I saw the job posting and I thought it was kind of just a perfect storm of, I'm going to apply for this. And I think if I saw it the next day, maybe I wouldn't have. But just kind of thought, when else would I move to Vegas? And it's time for a change. And I really missed football after working with the Buccaneers. And yeah, it was just a perfect storm. But I knew I had to get out of the situation that I was in. But as we all know, like I said, it's not as easy as it seems. And it took a while. It probably took 8 months from the conversation I had to being in the thick of an interview process with the Raiders. So it was a long 8 months and hard to wake up and go do something every day that you feel like you're not valued at.
Yeah. And when you're talking to the Raiders, which is your current organization, what was that process like? Because now you're like, I'm going to make sure I get my worth. I have some, intel of what I should be getting paid, adjacent role or similar role. But did that experience of we're going to call it the W-2 experience, did that give you more confidence when you were negotiating with the Raiders?
It did, but the Raiders are just I can't say enough good things. They came in at a fair price of what they valued me, and they value people here. And I really didn't have to go back and negotiate a salary. I was what they provided me with was what I felt was fair, to be compensated at the level that I came on at. So that's what also when I knew, oh, this is a company that I want to work for. And the one that I was just at was not a normal situation. And that's proved to be the case with Raiders since the day I've been here.
Yeah. What a great feeling to go to a place that valued the role, right? Because they didn't know you at first, valued the role, then got to know you through the 8-month interview process. I'm sure it was a little different than that, but it sounded like it took 8 months. So like it felt like an embrace almost, right? Like when they give you that offer and you're like, yes, that's what, that's in the line or close to what I was thinking. And there's companies out there like that.
Yeah. And it was a phone call with my now boss. And within the first 2 minutes, I was like, oh, I love this woman. Like I had only been working for men aside from my boss at the Bucs, who I adored, Christy Shell. And it was just an immediate connection. And I was like, I forgot what working for a badass woman is like. Like her experience is vast. She's done everything. She cares about alumni. She cares about her family. It was just an immediate, like, not only do I look up to this woman, but I need to work for this woman. And that was also a super refreshing feeling as well, coming from the situation that I was in.
Did they value your master's work?
They did. And I definitely valued it more just in terms of the confidence it gave me in the interview process.
Sure.
We had to do a presentation, and all the presentations I gave in grad school, putting them together and public speaking, I would not have been able to do the interview process for the Raiders without that experience. And I'm at fault of this. On resumes, I don't look at the education first. I always look at the professional experience. So that was most of the topic of conversation, but we did get to, education and how important education was to me and how important it is to a number of people that interviewed me here as well. So I knew that education and professional development was super important to everyone here.
Yeah, so you knew the right questions to ask too.
Yeah.
Just during the interview process.
Yep.
Now, looking back, how did you navigate, or how did navigating a toxic work environment make you a stronger person? Or did it, and how did it?
It absolutely did. Well, one, I was confident in my worth, but two, because I wasn't happy in my current work environment, I went out and found mentors elsewhere. And to me, having mentors is the most important thing in the world. The people, there's 4 mentors I can think of that have shaped my professional career and are the reason where I am today.
And this is, you're talking about when you went to go look for the mentors. This is not the Raiders. This is previous jobs, correct?
Yes. But one of my mentors is at the Raiders, who's my current boss. But being in a toxic work environment, you have to go outward.
I see what you're saying. Yep.
And I was going inward at first of my feedback isn't important. They're making locker room jokes. Like I didn't have a personality. I was kind of a shell of myself because I didn't fit the culture, and I just wanted to work and do my job and prove myself, and in doing so it wasn't valued. So I went outward, and I forced myself to go outward, which I think is very hard in a toxic environment. You just want to go inward, and I think going out, there's a different word for outward, but going outward was one of the best things that I could have done, because one of my professors at my graduate program, Professor Hollander, became my mentor and my biggest advocate. And he would see job postings and email them to me and say, do you have interest? I said, yes. 5 minutes later, there would be an email, him connecting me with the hiring manager that he had known. This is Callie, one of my students. I mean, he did everything for his students. And still to this day, we talk weekly. He told me to value myself and showed me how to value myself, and also kind of gave me a light at the end of the tunnel that the organization I was at wasn't the only organization to work for. And have you thought about this? And, this industry and sports sponsorships. And he just gave me the confidence that I needed to prove myself and get out of that toxic work environment.
Wow. You're saying that when you're in the toxic work environment, it's difficult to see a way out. And you just feel like you're stuck. There's nowhere else to go. Like, so you don't seek outside help. Like, you just kind of feel like stuck in a way. I feel like there's a better word than that, but something along those lines. Am I getting that right?
Absolutely. Yep.
What a frightening place to be.
It was, especially so early on in my career, because, I was an intern at the Bucs, and Christy Snell, who I mentioned previously, was my mentor there. And I watched her navigate difficult situations that now looking back on, I realized the weight of, but I was just an intern and just kind of listening and watching and kind of learning that way. But she was my like champion, and she pushed me and taught me everything. And here at the Raiders, that's my boss, Shannon Jordan. I could not love her more. She's incredible. She takes me into meetings and values my opinion and includes me on, things that are probably above my pay grade, but just for experience. And so to be in that kind of middle sandwich of, this is my first professional job, coming from a great internship at the Bucs, and then just feeling like I had no value, just the comments that I would hear, the jokes, and just like, this is what it's really like. Like maybe Christy shielded me from all this at the Bucs, but it wasn't that at the Bucs. It was just, this was the one environment that I was in. And I got stuck there for a while in my career because I just didn't think there was a way out. I didn't think it would be different anywhere else. And also, as we've said, it's hard to get another job in sports.
Yeah, it could be terrifying.
Yeah.
It can really do a toll on your mental health.
Absolutely.
Oof. Thanks for sharing all that.
Of course.
That was a lot. You got vulnerable and you opened up and you shared a lot with us. So I know that the audience cannot thank you as they're listening, but I know that everyone's thinking like, yes, this is what I needed to hear. I know a friend needs to hear this episode, or I know if this ever happens to me, where I'm coming to get some, sort of like advice, pep talk, just to hear somebody else going through something similar. So thank you.
Of course.
We talked about a lot of heavy stuff. So before we go into rapid fire questions, is there anything else that maybe I haven't asked you the right question, or anything else you want to share with us before we go to rapid fire?
Absolutely. I think the importance of being your true self, and back to the topic of that we're criers, and being a woman, and in difficult conversations, sometimes, it's, and I used to hate this about myself, crying when you're frustrated or you want to speak up for yourself. And being in an environment where I was the only woman, I was so afraid to show emotion. I didn't want to be the girl that was crying and in a group of men. So I held in emotions and I pushed things down, and it made me not a great person. I was frustrated. I was in a bad mood, and I would just push it down and go along with my day. And one of my first days at the Raiders, I started in COVID, so it was all virtual. I had moved to Las Vegas from New York, and I was so homesick. And I hate to say this at 30 years old, but I was homesick. I missed my mom. I missed my friends. And I had a meeting with my boss, Shannon, and, we log on and she says, "How are you doing?" And the old me would have said, "I'm fine. And what do you want to talk about today? What do we have to get done today?" And I probably would have not done as great of a job on the project that I was assigned or the conversation I was in. And it was the first time that I just felt like I could express myself. And I immediately started crying. And it opened up a level, I found out she missed her mom. She had left her whole life behind in Chicago for this job, and she had been through it. And we bonded on that and just created this relationship of like, she's my family away from family now, because I was able to show that side of myself that I was previously embarrassed of. And I'm not saying to go into your boss's office and cry, but like to be able to show that human element and create that connection with your leader or a coworker is so important, because that aspect of yourself is just as important as, the professional aspect, and how much you can get done in a day is the person that you are. And I'm so thankful that I learned that side of myself, and I've shown that side of myself, and we're all human, and have learned that it is okay to cry when you're sad or upset or just having a bad day, if you have that person that you can go to.
Yeah. What a beautiful story. Just, you had that moment to say, "I'm fine," and move on. But you opened up, and then it ended up being two-way, like vulnerability, right? Like you both were sharing how you were feeling that made you feel like you weren't alone. And talk about the psychological safety that happens when your manager asked you how you were doing and actually was there and created space to receive the answer, and you took her up on it. Like that creates psychological safety, which I think will, when anyone has that, then it's easier for them to grow in their role. It's easier for them to be who they are and show up as their authentic selves. And I always talk about show up as your authentic self at work. But if there's no psychological safety, you're not doing it.
You hit the nail on the head. And, there's always advice of be yourself. And okay, well, myself, sometimes I'm homesick, and sometimes I'm having a bad day, and to have a leader, like you said, that safety to have those conversations. And I know not everyone is that lucky. I was in that situation where I didn't have that and how difficult it was, but it created a sense of trust in us that also translated into the work side. I trust her with everything. She trusts me with everything. She will give me projects that might be above my pay grade, but we have that level of trust and that we can go to each other with everything and that we care about each other. I got promoted after 2 years of being here, and that was all because of her. She championed for me. She advocates for me. And that's because of the relationship that we've built and the trust that is there and the human element side of it that makes you care just that much more about someone. Just knowing, you know, how are your children? How are your family? How's your mom? Just those questions, they're not just surface level. They create an entire different relationship and level of, honestly, professional growth because the trust is there.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad that we ended with that. Like, I'm so glad you added some more to the conversation. So thank you for sharing. I mean, you were just opening up today. I love it.
Open book.
These are the Game of Thrones listeners. These are by far from the metrics. These are like their favorite episodes. So thank you for sharing.
Of course.
All right. Are you ready for rapid fire questions?
I am.
All right, here we go. 12 questions. First thing that comes to mind. What is your favorite sports moment?
Al Harris, 2003 interception against the Seahawks, NFC championship game.
Oh, there you go. What is something people always get wrong about you?
That I'm not from Boston because I don't have a Boston accent.
Yeah, I forget that you're from Boston.
Lucky.
Like, honestly, this whole, I completely forgot. So yeah, case in point. What is one food you wouldn't want to give up?
Sushi.
Are you a morning or night person?
Morning.
Favorite holiday?
Easter.
Ooh. Dog or cat person?
Dog.
What product would you seriously stockpile if you found out they weren't going to sell it anymore?
Oh, that's a good one. Probably dry shampoo because I'm lazy.
I hear you. Well, this is why I have my hair in these locks because I'm like, I'm too lazy to do my hair. What is your favorite app?
TikTok.
Okay, if you had to pick LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, or Instagram.
If I had to pick, so TikTok is my favorite app, but Twitter, because I know it's rapid fire, but because it's my source, but it's humor, there's memes, it's current event. I love Twitter. I'm on Twitter all day long.
I'm not on Twitter. Sometimes I feel like I should, but then I don't know. Like Instagram's becoming like Facebook. Do you know what I mean? Like, like I feel like it's slowly being outdated. I don't know. Who's your biggest inspiration in life?
My mom.
As a child, what did you wish? We already know this, but I'll ask anyway. As a child, what did you wish to become when you grew up?
A marine biologist.
Finish the sentence. The future of women working in sports is?
Executive.
Oh, I like that. And that is a first time answer for this.
Ooh, look at that.
Allie, thank you so much for all of your time and sharing honesty and candidness. If someone wanted to get in touch with you, how could they go about doing that?
Any way possible. Email is probably best, which is cwelch@raiders.com.
All right. That was super easy.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So what did you think of this episode? Do you know another woman who works or is aspiring to work in sports? Would you do me a favor and share this with them? It would mean so much if together we could support and inspire other women on their journey. And let's stay connected. I love meeting and talking to new people. Follow me on Instagram @Jahaan Blake and join the free Game of Her Own community by visiting jahaanblake.com. I can't wait to meet you.